Good day and good evening, and welcome to Walk and Talk with me, Caetsu Chaiji, but you can just call me Kai. Tonight, as usual, we walk somewhere, and while we do that, we talk about everything and anything Final Fantasy XIV, or not even Final Fantasy XIV. And when we reach the destination, I have actually a lot of clips from all of you. I don't think we can make it through all of them tonight. But we'll see how many we can get. I usually prioritize people that are actually in the chat. Both because they can, actually experience their clip being seen and reacted to. And also that it makes it a little easier to give feedback when they're there. With that said, hey Alfox, hey Korox, hey Gazel, hey Grace, hey Zaf, hey Tinali, hey Agony, hey Ceres, hey Giraheen, hey Sally, hey Marcus, hey Ridlian, hey Kazadragoon. I hope you're all doing very well. But you have a little bit of a shorter walk this time, both because like the previous streams, I've been really trying to push how long I could make the walks, just to see how long we can get them. But also because, as we have a lot of clips, we don't have to make the walk extremely long. Gazel says, any hints on where you're heading to? I would say that where, like, our third spot is a pretty huge tip. With that said, we should probably get going. Yo, Scott. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, I wonder. I would not be surprised if there's a bit less people coming along tonight, since, like, it is Halloween and all that, so some people might be doing that. And I'm sure a lot of people have plans in that regard. But, I don't. So we're doing this. There is I believe there's a skip here, where we can, like, basically there's a drop we can go through, so we don't have to go all the way around here. Now, the thing is whether I can remember, or I actually can see where that is. Hey Odell, hope you're doing well. The Dravanian hinterlands is the area where Alexander is. Or I guess was, depending on how you look at it story-wise. If you look closely, you'll see that the lizard is already planning world domination. Right after teaching people to read tooltips. Imagine if you could actually teach people to read tooltips. Like, that's a challenge. The best you can do is read the tooltips for them, I think. Hey Brontom and Murphog, hope you're both doing well. His was and will be. That's true. That's how it is sometimes with time magic. Hey Philippe, hope you're doing well as well. Ishgardian Fates. Are you farming something specific? Imagine teaching people to listen to you explaining the tooltips. I mean, that's better than them not knowing what the tooltips say at all, right? Hey Angry Family, hope you're doing well. We're literally walking and talking. So if there's anything you have in mind you'd like to ask about or whatever, this is a great time to do that. Just to pass time. Oh, okay. Oh, interesting, Brontom. I hope it goes well. It's good for the legs. Yep. It is good for the legs. Mm-hmm. Hey Vince, hope you're doing well. New to the game, what class do you recommend to me? That depends on what you want. If you want to play a tank, you're kind of, like, as a new player, you're kind of stuck with either Gladiator or Marauder to start. Gladiator is probably easier to, like, pick up right at the start, but Marauder becomes, I would say, like, it becomes very strong to the point that, like, defensively, that it might teach you some bad habits, to say the least. If you want to play a healer, your initial only option is Conjurer, but if you want to play Scholar, which is like a pet healer, a lot more complicated, you have to start as a DPS, the Arcanist. And if you want to play a DPS, it comes down to what you want. If you want to play a Mage, but you want it easy, you can choose Arcanist. If you want to play a Mage, but you want to, like, you actually want to play a Wizard, you can play Black Mage, which is Thaumaturge. If you want to play like something more physical, then like characters that smash enemies. I mean, Monk punches a lot. That could work. I don't exactly know what you mean with smash enemies. I'm doing pretty well as well, Vince. With big weapons. Well, the closest you'll get to that is probably Warrior. Their final action that they get at level 100 makes their axe triple in size, and then they smash down on the enemy, which produces like a volcanic eruption almost. And that would mean you should start as a Marauder to then become a Warrior. I'm good to hear that. Good to hear that, merfolk. And yeah, exactly, Vince. That is that shortcut. But I don't think I ever tried it. Hey, Dairuru. Hope you're doing well. Have a favorite anime or manga? Well, I really enjoy Log Horizon, and I really enjoy Frieren. So, both of those. Agony says, I have a question that may make keyboard and mouse people instantly dislike me. Why would that be? Use the mouse near exclusively for movement in 14. Am I crazy for wanting to rebind WASD for more convenient skill binds? No. If that works for you, then you can do that. The main danger there is that of course means that you will have a hard time like moving in one direction while looking in another, because you can only move by using the mouse. But that is a viable way to play. If you can make it work, then there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes I play like that. And sometimes, you know, if you're only using W to move forward, then you're basically doing that anyway, right? And also, Angry Family, as Sarah says, you don't need to make 2 characters for that. You, by level 10, if you do your class quests, you will unlock the ability to change to different classes. And by level 15 in the main quest, you will have unlocked access to the 3 starting cities, which means that all classes that start there are already available to you. Like, you can make multiple characters if you want to, but you don't have to. Yeah, I know, actually, Agony, I know players in World of Warcraft that did that. Some that have just unbound ASD, some that have bound all 4. So, like, if it works for you, that's fine. Say, Delane, hope you're doing well. it's strange they don't just start as a rogue. It is strange, but there is a reason why that is, Elaine. Originally, A Realm Reborn didn't ship with rogue and ninja. It was added during A Realm Reborn. If you paid close attention to the MSQ, there is a particular patch. I think it was around the time when you were fighting Leviathan, where Thancred got really, really crazy with his moves, and Yugiri did the same. That was around the time they added rogue. Oh, I believe it was a lot later than that, Gasel. 2.4. Thank you, Ardell. And if you pay close enough to the attention, the Angry Family says, a friend told me that I can skip the store in the game for a price. If you've bought the game and everything, then there is a store item that allows you to, like, skip a part of the story. But if you're new to the game, that might not be a good idea, because the, like, gradual progression in levels is also there to give you time to learn all the things. If you're completely new to the game, your first dungeon being Yukatsumu at level 91 is going to be brutal. Whereas if you start from level 1, your first dungeon is going to be a lot more lenient. It might be very easy, but it's going to give you the space to learn. And even if you're not new to MMOs, it might be a problem to skip. Alright, Vince, I'll try to see it. And hey, Vyek and Gleaming. Hope you're doing both. And Weaver, hope you're all doing very well. And thank you so much for the 10 gifted memberships, Merfolk. Thank you. Wow. Da-da-da-da-da-da. It was around here, right? Where'd my username come from? Well, I made a monk in World of Warcraft that I named Chaiji. And later I made a druid named Caetsu. And then Final Fantasy XIV said 2 names. And there you go. Oh, there's a fairy. These wet floors. Thank you, Merfolk. Hey, Baron. Hope you're doing well. It's a pretty big shortcut. Where does the pink come from? I just like the color. Angry Family, there are actually a ton of cool mounts that are not cash shop. My knees! I just think it's neat. Theru says, how long did it take you to max your combat jobs and non-combat jobs initially? That's hard to define, because initially I got into the game in Stormblood. And I quit the game and came back during Stormblood, and again in Shadowbringers. And it was only the third time I came back I actually came to stay. Or the third time I got into the game. And I came to stay. And it was at that time that I maxed out everything. And for the most part, the strategy that I describe in my leveling guides is the strategy that I used to level all those jobs. How long it took, I'm not actually sure. There is a tool that I found. I can't like look it up right now, but there is a tool on the internet that allows you to get like a graph of how, like, when and how quickly you leveled all of your jobs and everything, and when you did what in the game. So like there is a clear answer. But after Shadowbringers, in both cases, both Endwalker and Dawntrail, it took me around 2 months at most to level everything to max. But that was of course with jobs already being pretty high. Angry Family says that the mount I saw was a big robot dragon. That's probably Landerwaffe. Can I find it? There it is. This one is acquired by collecting these 7 Gwyver mounts. And their drops from old extreme content. Meowton Dew, hope you're doing well. And hey Nox, hope you're doing well as well. And says I started an IUCOP speed prog group yesterday, and it's not going quite as well as I'd hoped. Well, I mean, that doesn't surprise me. A group going, yeah, we're trying to speedrun it, would very likely attract the kind of player that might not actually be capable of that, just hypothetically. To your question, Meowton Dew, I really like Ultima Thule. I think that zone is awesome. That's also why it is in most of my videos as a result of the end slate. Yeah, I could imagine that, Grace. That's also a difference between Endwalker and Dawntrail for me, is that in Endwalker, for the most part, I did the leveling just, like, the advice I give in my job guides is, you know, queue for something and then do, like, these things to fill the time. That originates from, like, when I was doing it alone in Endwalker. Because if you queued for something as DPS, it might take a bit before you actually get in. In Dawntrail, however, most of the time I would do those filler tasks while either waiting for a friend to be ready to go, or I'd do them after I had done the dailies, just as like something really easy to do at the end. It is a pretty big difference if you're doing it with other people. But what you can do, if you're feeling that it's very lonely and boring to level, is that the Discord community server has like a looking for group room. If you can like coordinate with other people, you could like go, right, well, I'm doing dailies at this time, anyone want to go? And then, you know, what region you are on. Or you could ask just in general when you're about to start if anyone wants to join you. Like, that's actually, the thing is, the primary way I did my dailies when leveling myself was that whenever I got around to doing my dailies, and thank you, Aradel, when I got around to doing my dailies on a given day, is that there are, I know that there is a cross-world link shell on Light, on Chaos, and on OCE. I've heard that there might be some over in NA as well, but I haven't never seen them on account of never having been there. But if you are like, but the way I would usually do it is I would just write in that link shell, hey, I'm doing so and so dailies, I want to play this role, anyone want to join me? And usually you would get like 1 or 2 players with you. maybe a full team. And I think what we often ended up doing is that we would have like maybe even 2 groups doing all the 4-man content, and then when we get to the 8-man content, we like clump together to continue. Folks, as I bestow upon all a curse, the word homeowner can be broken up as homeyowner, and you will never look at it the same again. Oh boy. And congratulations, Gleebing. That's nice. Deru says, have you ever had to deal with 14 burnout or MMO burnout in general? If so, how have you dealt with it? Well, originally I got into Final Fantasy XIV because I was a little burned out on World of Warcraft. So, my primary advice, if you're getting burnout on a game, doesn't have to be an MMO. Any game. Also, bingo stamp, yes. If you're getting burned out on a game, then play something else. Or don't play anything. Like, do something else is the common way to, like, work through burnout. Is that often it's because you're bored of what you're doing every day. And I have sometimes been a little bored of Final Fantasy XIV. And the way that I usually deal with that these days is, well, given that I make videos on Final Fantasy XIV, that, like, I still do that. It's just that if I'm having fun with Final Fantasy XIV, like, particularly at that moment, I'll probably go, like, I'll effectively have the life of, right, I'm done recording, I'm done making videos of the day, right, time to check out from quote-unquote work, and then just continue playing. Like, just, now I just don't have OBS open. But if I'm not as excited, I'll probably just like do the dailies that I want to do, and then I'll just log out and play something else or do something else until the excitement comes back. I can take a break, Guzzle. Yeah, the one thing that makes it hard for some people to take a break, Sally, is the housing. Since, like, you can take a break for as long as you want, but you have to keep your sub running so you can come in and check your house. And says, are you going to play any of the Monster Hunter Wilds open beta tonight? I don't think so. See, the thing is, it's, like, I like Monster Hunter very much. It's very fun. But by playing the beta, I'm ruining my first, like, initial experience of the game. Some of the things that would be exciting surprises are no longer surprises because I played the beta. So I don't plan to. But I have been asked multiple times about that, actually. Love says, how often should you update your gear sets when leveling a class? It depends on how far down you're leveling it from. If you're leveling it from level 1, I would actually recommend, like, if it's not your first, like, run through, it wouldn't actually be a bad idea to just, like, if you're just queuing for duties and stuff, park yourself near your grand company. The reason being that there's actually, like, they sell a lot of, like, effectively leveling gear, and it's actually good, like, up to level 50. And if you can't find any, it also gives you, like, an indication. You can see that, oh, a level 40 piece is, like, twice as strong as the level so-and-so piece that I'm wearing. I should probably change some of my gear. But it kind of depends also on what role you're playing, right? If you're playing a tank, it'll be very clear when your gear is obsolete. Like, if you do each dungeon in sequence, you'll probably be able to be like, oh man, when I did I did Cutter's Cry, I feel like the mobs hit really, really hard, but it didn't feel nearly as bad when I did Bravelock's Longstop. Prior to that, I should probably get some better gear. If you're a healer, it can be a lot harder to determine, and if you're a DPS, you might not even notice. I would say from level 1 to 30, 1 to 30, you're probably pretty okay with the brand new gear and equally appropriate gear from Hall of the Novice. Like level 15 or so gear, and then you'll pick up more gear as you do content, right? You'll get a few pieces here and there. But after that, it might be a good idea to refresh your gear, make sure everything's up to date at level 30. Maybe again at level 40 or so, 42, 43. Mainly because Stone Vigil, Zemail Darkhold, and Aurum Vale are all really rough. And then again at level 50. After that, I would say for the most part, you're okay if you check in on your gear every 10 levels. So 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and of course at 100. And you will notice that your gear starts to fall off in power at around halfway through a given expansion. Which makes sense because the level 55, 65, 75, 85, and 95 dungeons are the dungeons that will drop better gear than the Poetics gear that you might be wearing. But and the reason why I say might be wearing is because it doesn't have to be Poetics gear. You can just get a set of high quality crafted gear at each increment. Just make sure it's item level 115 and not item level 70. At level 50. Make sure it is entry Heavensward crafted gear, or entry Stormblood crafted gear, etc. So you don't fall too far behind. Of course, that crafted gear will also start to feel weak sooner, because that tends to be overtaken much earlier in the expansion. But around every 10 levels is a good idea. Gleaming says, I have a tendency to use tome gear from X0 to X7-ish and then grab a set from a vendor. When you say a set from a vendor, Gleaming, I hope you're not talking about normal quality gear. Because normal quality gear is 10% weaker than high quality gear, and the Poetics gear is effectively high quality gear without the notification that it's high quality. I would not recommend replacing your Poetics gear with vendor gear unless it is high quality. Make sure to check the stats on it. Do I have a good example of that? You're doing it for item level lockouts. That shouldn't be necessary. And yeah, also as Zav says, in A Realm Reborn content, it is mainly about the left side. If you can find a few pieces here and there of right side, accessory stuff, that's fine. But in A Realm Reborn, it is really hard to find actually good accessories. I don't think, Sally, I just want to underline what you're saying there. You say tanks and healers should update as often as you can. All jobs should update as often as they can, but I can assure you from personal experience that it is perfectly fine to update your gear at each expansion increment. Usually it works out for tanks and healers quite naturally. DPS tends to need more not dungeon spam gear. usually when leveling jobs, it is a lot less likely that a DPS will level by spamming the highest level dungeon they have available, because it just won't pop. They'll usually rely on roulettes more often. So their gear is more likely to fall behind, whereas tanks and healers, once they've done the relevant roulettes for the day, they can just queue the highest level dungeon they have, and if they have to do that, you know, like 2 or 3 times maybe, then by the time they've done that, they have like half of the gear they could get from that one, and then the next dungeon over, they'll do that one a bunch of times, and assuming they're reasonably lucky, they'll have like gotten the other pieces they didn't replace in the previous dungeon replaced now, and it like naturally leapfrogs in this kind of way. But you really don't need, like, by level 50 the Ironworks Magitech gear is fine for Great Cabal Library, the Shire gear is fine for Alamigo, and so on and so forth. Yeah, it's not as easy and as good as basically being level 100 getting synced down, of course not. But, it's fine. The thing is, the item level difference, what that does is it means that you can get away with playing worse. Also, my knees! But yes, if you have the resources to refresh your gear more frequently, it doesn't hurt. But when someone asks how often should I refresh my gear, then that's usually what it relies on. How often do I have to refresh my gear? And for the most part, you don't have to do it all the time. You don't have to do it all the time. I would say it would actually be incredibly ludicrous to update it as often as you can, because update as often as you can implies that at level 50, you get Ironworks Magitech gear. Then at level 56... you have to buy a full high-quality crafted set. Or you might have to have farmed the Aerie enough times you have a full set for level 55 in, beforehand. Level 57, you already need to have a full vault set. At level 58, you need to buy a full set there. At level 59, you need a full Great Cabal Library set. And level 60, well, obviously you have the Idleshare gear, right? It's excessive to do that. If you need that, there might be something else that's the problem. And that's fair, Sally. That's also why I set some specific cases at level 15 gear should be able to carry you to level 30 or so. Level 30, that gear should be able to carry you to level 40 or so, but the 3 dungeons that come after that are really hard, so you need better gear. And I speak from some experience there, because I had trouble with beating Aurum Vale years ago with a group where the tank had done 0 of their job quests as Dark Knight, and was wearing the level 30 starter weapon and other garbage, and the healer was a legitimate sprout, but they had a level 35 weapon, and they had trouble healing enough. So, they were actually wearing not good enough gear. In contrast, the 2 DPS players, which included me, had full Ironworks Magitech. And it was, I think it was late Stormblood. So it wasn't possible for the Dark Knight to hold aggro, even with the tank stance on. So the problem was the first boss could kill the tank with just damage, because the healer couldn't keep them alive well enough, because the tank was undergeared and the healer was undergeared. But that meant that it was a DPS check, right? An indirect DPS check, because we have to kill the boss before it kills us. Except if both DPS just went guns blazing, full blast mode, then the tank couldn't hold aggro, and then we would die instead, because obviously the healer couldn't keep us alive either. Now, while I'm on the subject of that story, the funny thing is that I'm 99% certain that the healer legitimately, was new. It was probably their first go at Aurum Vale ever, and they were trying their best. The tank had been leveling with Palace of the Dead, And this was like the last thing they had to do before they'd hit level 50. And there they had a weapon from Ramu, I believe, that they had intended to use. Something like that. And they just want a little bit of a variety from Palace of the Dead. Ignoring the part where the fact they had not done a single job quest was a problem in regular content, but not in Palace of the Dead. We ended up having to vote abandon. And yeah, Nox, that sometimes happens, that sometimes you only get one piece. It's extra funny when it's like every boss drops like 2 pieces for the healer or something, and you're like, oh man, lucky you. They don't even need it. Yeah, do your job quests. Gleaming says, you know, and I know that you had to do your job quest ASAP, but with something like Dark Knight, I at least understand going, I'll just wait for level 50 to start. And see, the funny thing is, what was it? In Stormblood, the fact that Dark Knight had not done their job quests meant that I don't even think they had Darkside. They didn't have Blood Weapon, they didn't have Dark Mind. They absolutely, like, they wouldn't have had Living Dead. And just to be clear, in Stormblood specifically, Darkside was a button you clicked, boop, and you do 20% more damage. Just all the time. What it cost you is that you couldn't receive MP from outside sources or your passive region. You could only get MP from, like, Siphon Strike and Blood Weapon. Exactly, Zilly and Gassel. Hey, Shorakai, hope you're doing well, and Vivi. So, like, they were missing that, they were missing Blood Weapon, they were missing a lot of tools, which made it really hard for everyone else. And then also their weapon was a level 30 normal quality starting sword. And also that day, Ruru, I'm actually pretty sure the healer was a white mage as well. So, like, not only that, but it was probably like, you're level 49 in Aurum Vale. You don't have Benediction. You have Cure 1, 2, 3, and Medica. Also, you have Regen, I guess. Like, I randomly earlier today, I went over something in relation to Tamtala Deepcroft. Not even Medica 2, that's level 50. For some reason, Astrologians get Aspected Helios at level 40. I went over something with Tamtala Deepcroft earlier just to see how crazy strong the different healers are. In Tamtara, the reason why it matters is because in Tamtara you can do some absolutely insanely big pulls. Like, you can do the entire dungeon in like 4 or 5 pulls total. In that one, Sage has Diagnosis, Prognosis, Doses, and Cardia, I believe. I'm pretty sure that's everything. Like, they also have Res. They don't even have a dot. So, like, while you're pulling, if your healer is a Sage, they're just kind of jogging along with you. Like, maybe they're slapping something while they're running. But that's it. And their slaps don't hit very hard. If your healer is a white mage, they have Arrow. And Arrow has upfront damage. So it's actually kind of okay. But once you reach your destination, all they can do is cast Cure 1 if you need it. A Scholar has Bio, but Bio actually blows mega hard in Tamtara. It's 200 potency over 30 seconds. It's incredibly bad. And if your tank is running like fast enough, you might actually reach a point where your pet is like falling behind, like can't reach you with Embrace anymore. But if the tank is running fast enough, that's usually fine. So like the scholar just needs to be ready with physic when you reach your destination so that they can give the pet time to catch back up, and it's mostly fine. Then there's Astrologian. Their dot is 500 potency over 30 seconds at level like under 20. It's like 50% stronger than the white mage one. It's better than Bio 2. Thank you, Ricky. Hope you're doing well. And they also have Essential Dignity. And they also have a light speed. So once they're done putting their Giga Dot on everything, just blap, 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 500 potency each, they can use light speed to cast Benefic on the tank if Essential Dignity isn't good enough. And they can cast Malefic on an enemy to kill it off. Like, it's insane. Absolutely insane. And like, you don't even have cards at that level. Hey, Num Num Num. Hope you're doing well. And hey, Cat. Hope you're doing well as well. Let's see, I've had a Giga pulling Don Meg Dark Knight who hadn't done his TBN quest, who then complained the healer wasn't ready for big pulls. It's always fun when they blame someone else. It is really funny that, Rontom. I will say, once Scholar and Sage gets their, like, Aetherflow and Adderskull, the power difference starts to close in really fast. Because once they get out of War and Dyscrasia, it doesn't really matter that Astrologian has a really good dot. Because they still have a really good dot when it upgrades to Combust 2. Did you forget? It's never my fault. Oh, fair point. As it says, I hope they have Living Dead at least. I mean, if they hadn't done their TBN quest, Theros is where you always aura. My first character, which I made in the free trial actually, was a gladiator male Mikote named Chaiji Caetsu because I'm insanely creative. I played him for like one day, and then I found out that if you bought the game, because at that time it wasn't in the free package, so to speak, if you bought the game you could be this. So then I did that, deleted the Mikote character and made this character, and I haven't changed her at all since I made her. When in doubt, great googly moogly. It has all gone to shite. Do I still have a macro with that one? Well, there it is. Not even an unlockable hairstyle? Nope. This is a standard hairstyle. I actually have on, like, there was a time where I think it was called Early to Rise that I got really excited about, and when I finally got it, I tested it like in like just the in the the character creator room to see how it would look, and I was like, nah, it looks wrong. Just turned it back. Alright, I think I just clicked cancel. Thank you, Svaz. Hope you're doing well. I mean, it is quite funny how crazy strong Astrologian is in lower level content. And it gets this crazy power spike when they get their cards now. But I still think that, like, the biggest quote-unquote problem in the low levels for healers is more so how weak white mage is. Not so much how strong the others are. Like, at really low levels, the reason why Astrologians look so insane is more so because Sage and White Mage are kinda when you're really low level, and Scholar is kinda good, which really emphasizes when Astrologian is better than that. Yeah, exactly. Comparatively, it makes Astrologian look absolutely insane, and it takes a long time before the barrier healers probably catch up, because they need their resource meters, so to speak, to do that. And White Mage, like I've said before, it feels like White Mage is like discount Astrologian until like nearly level 60, if not up to level 60. And the reason why it feels like that isn't even because White Mage suddenly is now better or equal to Astrologian at level 60. It's just that White Mage at that point has enough distinctly different tools that it isn't basically Astrologian, but worse anymore. Even just spamming Adlo can be better than Cure 2 spam in a lot of cases. Yeah, mainly because of how Adlo can crit. As I should get to. You know what is really funny about that, Marcus? If they gave SIs 2 charges. If they gave SIs 2 charges, you know what would happen? You know what would happen, Marcus? You'd use 1 SIs on the odd minute-ish, and then you'd use 2 in the 2-minute burst. Healing? No, this thing does damage. It's a damage button. Also gives MP. And it's the reason why I can say that with such confidence is because we've seen exactly that happen with other things. Anything that goes from having 1 charge to 2 charges just becomes, oh great, now we can have 2 of them in the 2-minute burst. At least you don't lose damage by holding it for a raid wide. That is true, Strat. And that's also the thing that in optimization contexts, giving SIs 2 charges would just mean that White Mages SIs twice in their burst. And once, like, offbeat. But the reason why we know exactly that would happen is because exactly that was what they did with Flemmer. Initially, when Sage got put into the game, SIs had a cooldown of 45 seconds. And Flemmer had a cooldown of 45, well, a charge time of 45 seconds. Then they changed both to 40 seconds. And that made it like, before the change, Sage could sometimes like metered out exactly so that they could fit 2 Flemmers in the 2-minute burst. But it was a little because at that time the 2-minute burst was 15 seconds, not 20. Then they changed the cooldown to 40 seconds, and now it wasn't even a question. Obviously you can do it. And that is true, Strat. But there is the part that because of the way that you have to stockpile these charges, that charge you can use for mobility when optimizing isn't something you can use whenever you want. Because if you're trying to maximize the damage, right? then to reach 2 Flimmer charges for the 2-minute burst, then you need to have 1 charge when you're at 1 minute 20 seconds. You need to have 1 charge and then gain the other one at the 2-minute mark approximately. Which means that the time where you have, like the time you have to use it when you want to, is the charge you get at the 40-second mark, and you can use it before 1 minute 20 seconds. And that's true, Sally, I suppose. It kinda depends on this and that. The problem is, exactly as Matthew says, why would you move those when you could just move something else? Like, yes, SI's being 400 potency OGCD AoE healing is pretty potent. But that, like, actually, is that super strong as a white mage, when you really think about it? Is that actually super strong? It is, if I only need SIs or staff or something, why use 2 things that add up to it? An interesting problem that I've run into myself as a tank, that is of course a little bit of a side note to that, is that on the one hand, I could use all of my cooldowns, like, super aggressively. On the other hand, I don't need to use everything. So going, well, this thing I could move so I don't have to use something else is completely redundant because I have that other thing to spend. Like, I could just use both. It's fine. It's good enough. It's fine. Was the walk and talk just to show where to buy Heaven's Ward token? That would be pretty funny. We've ran, like, every week we've been walking somewhere and then walking from there to somewhere else the next time. And then, like, walking from somewhere to somewhere else every time. And then finally we made it. We finally remembered where it is you buy Heaven's Ward tome gear. And see, there's something interesting to that then, Sally. For SI specifically, holding it for a few seconds repeatedly does cost you MP, and MP is a much more luxurious resource for fixing things in random duties when things go wrong. If you have MP and you're alive, there's a reasonable chance that that you as a healer, you can fix things by just casting some healing spells. But you can't do that if you're out of MP, and holding SIs can be a problem. Does White Mage care about MP? Depends on how much you hold your resources. The thing is, White Mage simultaneously has the capacity to save as much MP as possible, but White Mage also has the most expensive healing spells. And yeah, also as Fubuki says, SIs being such a big damage button also matters. Like, if let's actually take a look at that for a second, right? Your filler attack as a white mage is 330 potency, right? 330. SIs does 400. So SIs is more than just an extra smack, extra glare 3, just sprinkled on top. Meanwhile, Afflatus Rapture is 400 AoE cure potency. S-Ice is also 400. So S-Ice is an extra Afflatus Rapture, but it is more than an extra glare. So I could see the reasoning for holding S-Ice if you've been going through attempts on the fight and you're clearly lacking healing so much that you also need to plan S-Ice around that. But under most circumstances, you don't have to. There is this, I'm gonna throw out my damage, but if I can use it for healing, I'm gonna. Otherwise, the healing may as well not exist. That's actually the joke with S-Ice. It does everything, which means that you use it whenever one of the things on it is helpful. And it always will do at least 2 things. Like, it always does 2 things that you want, so that's why you use it. And I think the best answer to that, Sally, is then maybe White Mage is not for you. Like the rest of it. Well, that's the problem then. Hey Tristan, hope you're doing well. You don't like wasting healing if I don't have to? Well, that's the thing with White Mage. Is that... yeah, that White Mage's entire thing... I think I've explained this many times before, is that White Mage produces so much healing that it's like an endless funnel of healing that just like healing will happen whether you need it or not. And S-Ice is part of that experience. Afflatus Rapture is part of that experience. When the healing is unneeded, it feels a little weird because it feels like you're just wasting resources. But that's how they make that happen. It's the same as how Sage sometimes just casts Ethereal Holy on themselves because, well, I need MP and I don't need this Adder Skull right now. Silly, that isn't nearly as unique an experience as you'd think. Because the general idea is that you judge whether you need to use Medica 3 or if you can get away with Rapture, because Rapture is quote-unquote DPS neutral, whereas Medica 3 is not. So like, that one is actually natural. That kind of reasoning is actually why you use S-Ice on cooldown. Because Rapture is better damage than Medica 3. Oh, the problem there is that you said Medica 1 there, Sally. And the reason why there is a little bit of a problem there is that you're paying... like, check this, Sally. You're saving 100 MP by using Medica 1. After 3 seconds, Medica 3 will have healed for more than Medica 1. That's the reason. Anyway. Yep. Anyway, let's see. I have a lot of clips, as you can see. I also have some where people just send me a file, essentially. So if you're in the chat, it might help to like announce yourself if you have put out a clip. I have a clip from Cyanide still. I have a clip from Jake. I have one from Viek. I have two from Viek, actually. I have one from Strat. I have one from Sip. I have one from Gassel. I have another one from Viek, actually. Wow. I have one from Fubuki. I think this one also was Gassel, but it was like Fubuki's POV. Who was this? I think this was this also Sally? I think so. And we have one from Shaq. And then we also have some files where I have one from someone that was named Chingus on Discord. I have one from Ali, and have something from Yannick. So if you're in the chat, let me know that you're here. I think the chat died completely. Or did it? Hello? Is the chat dead? Whoa! I'm sure you can see what happened on stream, right? That was weird. Yeah, that wasn't even you, Gassel. It was straight up YouTube just went bleh, it seems like. We need to cast ass eyes on YouTube, yeah. Wow. Right. Let's try that again. There was a lot of comments. I see Gassel is here. I also see a lot of people that were just quietly listening in, I think. I hope you're doing well. Well, at least, Tristan, this time it isn't frame drops. It's just chat drops. I've seen Strat and Gassel in the chat. And, well, Gassel and Fubuki. And Sally. So yeah, if you are in the chat and you know that you posted a clip to me recently, just let me know that you're here. Viek is here. There's something weird with that, like top chat thing here. Wasn't the E2S clip shown last time? Actually, yes and no. Viek re-recorded it as Dark Knight because people were like, well, it's only hard if it's Dark Knight. Like, I believe Viek did it with Paladin. And then we talked about it would be harder with Dark Knight, so Viek did it again with Dark Knight, just to prove a point. Yep, well, I mean, when there's that many clips, it might be the case that we choose one of them. We'll see what we do. To start, I know Strahd has a rather short one here. Is there anything we're looking for in particular for it? Yeah, exactly, Fubuki. As I understood, it was Gazel wanted to ask about something, but you were the one that recorded it. Funny meme wipe. Okay, excellent. One limit break. Splat. 2 limit break. Those are sorta kinda spread markers or some such. Oh look, you have limit break again. I wonder what you will do with it. Tank limit break. Oh, 2 deaths? Uh-oh. Is it normal to have that many LBs? Yes, in that specific phase, it's basically like, you get an LB, and you get an LB, and you get an LB. You know, what? At some point, around here... Actually, maybe I can find the spot even sooner than that. Right here. Connection dead. There was a moment where the connection got re-established. Dead. The minstrel just went, actually, I don't think it went like that. Let me try again. You just get smacked back in time. Let me try from the top. That is a really sad time to have a lag. How long into the fight is that? How long into the fight is that? 18 minutes? Seriously? Wow. Oh, man. That sucks. That really sucks. Oh. That's not very epic. Right. Next, we can take the thing that Gazel wanted to ask about here. It is 10 minutes. Is it the whole thing that you wanted me to see, Gazel? Or is it a specific part you were thinking of? Or did you just want, like, some part of it and then advice? Or what did you have in mind? Because I have seen what you said. What do you do if the tank isn't mitigating? And apparently there's also a quote from the tank that goes, "It's a low-level duty, man." Yeah, what do you do if the tank isn't mitigating? Pray. Well, as a white mage, that might be all you can do. Right before the second boss is what it was when the quote happened. Well, let's see what we have here. Oh boy. We have a bigger issue here. I'll just let the fight play to its finale, and then I'll ask you what the problem is. Did anyone see the problem? Yeah, exactly, Zilly. Did anyone see the tank do this? Once? Pretty sure I only saw this. Who needs AoE, am I right? See, there was an unleash. One unleash. Hard Slash. Siphon Strike. Soul Eater. Hard Slash. Siphon Strike. Soul Eater. I mean, Unleash kinda is boring in this level range, but it is better than 1, 2, 3s. Did you see the Adventure Plate had a Paladin outfit? The Adventure Plate had a Paladin outfit. So in the chat, it's a little hard for you to see because I'm in the way. We have Gazel on an alt saying, "Do you have arm's length?" And the tank going, "It's a low-level duty, man." I mean, arm's length is a little bit of a weird request. Did he not use Rampart? Like, why arm's length? He didn't use Rampart. I mean... Oh, sure, Ridleyan. The problem is, if you're not, like... If you're not even using Rampart, start there. Well, he also did the classic Rampart GCD. And also, yes, he has arm's length. He's level 34. He opened with Rampart on this fight. For some reason. It's actually worse than that, Deiruru. The tank said it's a low-level duty, man, which to me sounds like... I know what defensive cooldowns are. I can't be bothered. I can't be bothered. That's why I'm not. I would say letting the tank die is maybe not the best move. But, I mean, it is a low-level duty, man. It's probably fine. Who needs a tank anyway? And then the tank goes, use Cure 2 only healer. Oh, man. Please, Gazel. Please tell me that you said it's a low-level duty, man. Please. Please. You want to see Cure 1? What? It would have been such an amazing counter. It would be so good. You're like, can you use defensive cooldowns? It's a low-level duty. You're not using your healing right. It's a low-level duty. Like, the same argument. If you're allowed to not use your toolkit because it's a low-level duty, then that applies to everyone. The red mage is now justified in only casting Jolt or only casting the Thunder if that's what they want, because it's a low-level duty, man. It's fine. The bard is allowed to exclusively use Bloodletter and auto attacks if that's what they want, because it's a low-level duty, man. Right? I know it's a little bit of an exaggeration, but the point stands that if you're allowed to play badly, like intentionally, because it's a low-level duty, man, then that applies to your entire group. And incidentally, if everyone's playing badly intentionally, then you're not beating Bravelox's long stop. Exactly, use your tools. The reason why you learn Rampart at level 8 is because the game believes you're gonna need it. The fact that you're not gonna need it until maybe Sastasha is besides the point. But yeah, I don't know if the best solution is to let the tank die, but I do think it's really, really funny that I don't think he realized that he died because you weren't healing him. I think he I think he thinks he died because you weren't healing enough. Like, I don't think he actually realized that. Also, hey, Silvermint. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, I have a video that I put out a long time ago called "It's Okay, It's Okay to Suck at Final Fantasy XIV" or something to that effect. And in that video, I explain in some detail that because of the difficulty of the game, it's fine to not be amazing at it in all the casual content. You're going to grow into it. It's fine. You'll get good eventually. But a key thing that I also bring up in it is that it's okay to legitimately be bad at Final Fantasy XIV, but it's not okay to intentionally play badly. That's immediately when the leash ends. That's as far as you can go. Exactly when the moment happens where you go, I'm going to be bad intentionally, that's when people no longer have patience for it. And this tank basically admitted to intentionally not bringing it because he couldn't be bothered, possibly. Now, I feel like I should make sure to say this because this is just some random stranger on the internet. I don't care what reason you might have to do this, and I don't care what world he is on. No one Do not seek this guy out to, like, pester him or harass him. Do not do that. And I'm saying this because the information is there to find them. Don't do that. You can get reported for that. Like, it's besides the point. Like, don't be a jerk. But you will be punished for that if you do it. And also, like, it's not justified. We can talk about what went wrong and what should be done better, but we don't attack the person. PSK announcement, yeah. Don't do that, right? Don't seek out the strangers that we meet in game just to dunk on them. That's not good. And also that, Flip, hopefully they'll learn eventually. I just continue to be wary of Dark Knights as a whole. A case in point, Grace. Yesterday, I think I mentioned it. I think I mentioned it in Discord yesterday that I had 2 runs of Caetsu's Hyperborea as Scholar, and both of them my tank was a Dark Knight. The first run, I was like, man, it's really hard to keep this Dark Knight alive. Is he using his cooldowns? And then I started paying attention. Like, nope, he is using Shadow Wall, and he is using Rampart, and he is using TVN, and he is using Oblation. Like, he is trying. There were spots where it was clear he wasn't perfect, but he was clearly trying. So it's just, Caetsu's Hyperborea is pretty, like, it's a pretty, like, difficult in terms of, like, outright trash pull mobs. It just hurts. And like in my guides where like for most tanks I'm like at level 82 or so, I say it might actually be worth it to start using like to overlap defensive cooldowns. I think my inspiration for that originated in Caetsu's Hyperborea, and I remember that when I did Caetsu's Hyperborea as Dark Knight myself, I noticed that it was so helpful to like interlace defensive cooldowns. Like you kind of have like 1.5 defensive running at all times, because it's really painful. And this tank was really trying. Just to be clear, I didn't even ask. Like, I was like, wow, this is really hard. And then I paid attention. I was like, he is using everything. Like, he's trying. Then the second run I got, the tank used TBN, I think twice in the dungeon. And in every pull, they would use either Shadow Wall or Rampart at the start, and then nothing else. Never again anything else. And after the first boss, they entirely stopped using TBN. And after the second boss, they entirely stopped using defensive cooldowns altogether. Somehow, no deaths, because I'm just that good, of course. My DPS the DPS players were actually good. Gazel says, how would you deal with this kind of situation yourself? He's a sprout. Or it's a sprout. I wouldn't say anything. At all. I would just assume they're garbage. If they can hold AoE aggro, and they're pulling to their skill level, check this out. This is a 1-pack pull that is perfectly manageable for a healer on a tank using no defensives. You will have to heal some. Just take note, how much does Cure 2 heal? And then the moment he drops below that threshold, you start casting Cure 2. You just play around the fact that your tank isn't super great. This is a single pull that is easily manageable by a tank with no defensives if the healer's using their healing. How much HP could he have? Let me see if I can find a point where they're at full HP. Like 1700. So you start casting Cure 2 when he drops below 1000 HP. Or even at 1000 HP. You cast Cure 2. If it was me, I would see the Sprout icon and just go, okay, I guess they're just bad. And just deal with it. I would also have, if I had felt compelled to say anything, I would have brought up Rampart. Just Rampart. Because Rampart is very simple. Arm's length is complicated. But that's what I would have done, is that I would have seen the Sprout icon. Even if they didn't have a Sprout icon, I would have been like, that's a really long dungeon, this, because he's single pulling. But if he's pulling to his skill level and I'm the healer, I'll just be like, well, okay, I'm pretty sure I also say this in some of my mentor videos, that, oh, they're not pulling super much, but, or they're not using their defensive cooldowns well, but they're only pulling single packs, so it's manageable. And then others where I'm complaining because they're pulling big and not using defensive cooldowns. And then there are times where they're pulling small and using defensive cooldowns where it's a little annoying. And then there are cases where they're pulling big and also using defensive cooldowns where, you know, everything's good. So in this particular case, I wouldn't say anything. I would just been like mildly confused, maybe. But I wouldn't have said anything. I just assumed they were bad. The issue was he was using Rampart just at the wrong time. That is also a difficult one to tackle. Again, I would probably just have let it be. The thing is, the reason why that's what I'm saying, and also that, Sally, if someone is pulling small and using defensives, again, I might have said it's okay, you can pull more. If I saw that behavior, that they're using defensives like a pro, but they're not pulling like one, then I might say you can pull more, it's okay, I've got you. But I wouldn't force them. But if I see someone pulling small, and not using defensives, then, like, as long as they're holding aggro, like, I just want you to know, Gazel, if you go far enough back in the Mentor Roulette catalog, like back in Endwalker, there was one where I had 2 Bravelocks long stop runs in the same session. And both times my tank was a Sprout that didn't use AoE. So the only advice I gave them in the entire dungeon was, by the way, if there's 2 or more mobs, use this action instead. They did that. They didn't start using defensive cooldowns. They weren't using defensive cooldowns, but they were pulling 1 pack at a time, and now they were holding aggro. Like, that was already an improvement. We'll take the next one next time. Why always Bravelocks? I would guess that it would, like, flip between Bravelocks and Hawk Manor, because Dark Knight, but one of those tanks in that particular video was a Paladin. But yeah, the reason why this conversation in this dungeon exactly ends at I wouldn't say anything is because if I had said anything, if I had said, by the way, can I give you a tip? Because that's what I usually do. And they had said yes, then I would have advised them to use Rampart in so-and-so a way, or maybe suggested they could use Reprisal and or Arm's Length a bit more. And if they had said no, and we'd go from there. And if they had, you know, said it's a low-level duty, man, then I would have already known, oh, this guy is a lost cause. I might have said, well, you should try to play your best in all content, regardless of whether it's low-level content. Use the tools the game gave you. And same, Vivi. That's the thing, is that if I was in, I don't know, Vanguard, in a level 97 dungeon, and I had a tank pulling single pulls and not using defensives, then the bad news is that you can't actually do that. By which I mean, 1 pack or 2 packs, doesn't matter, you need to use defensive cooldowns to survive that. Otherwise, the healer is working overtime to keep you alive. It doesn't matter. You have to use your defensive cooldowns at that point. The game has at least moved that far. So, like, it wouldn't have worked at that point. But yeah, I think that's what I would have done. Is I would have said nothing. But if I had offered a tip to them, I could imagine they would have just said no. And then the story would have ended there. The key is that he isn't pulling so big that it is actually a problem for me. But that's of course his problem. Because he's lucky that this group isn't the kind that ninja pulls for him when they get impatient. Always ninjas. Well, I mean, it's called ninja pulling from games that didn't have ninjas. NA feels harder to survive compared to other regions. How so? Like socially? And yeah, exactly, Fubuki. The problem with that tank in that clip was not what they were doing necessarily. Like, yeah, that was a minor issue, but the problem was their attitude, and we would only know that by approaching them, which is why I feel like it wouldn't happen on my end, because I wouldn't have said anything. I'd have just been confused. Yeah, socially. Yeah, I could imagine. I don't have that much data to go on, obviously, but my experience, based on all the stories I've heard from NA players, is that it feels like NA is that's probably where the suggestion that you can get banned for just speaking or giving advice originates from. It feels like that's where things like you pull, you tank, like, is a lot more ingrained. That's where you're much more likely to find healers that ninja pull, and if you ask them not to, they'll just go, I'll do it anyway. Yes, actually a common problem, I've been told. Weird things like that. And I'm not sure why. But yeah, ninja pulling, I explained this in my You Pull You Tank video. It's called ninja pulling for some reason. But the concept is that you're pulling for the tank without them asking for it. Like you're just pulling ahead, sneaking ahead, as Sally says, sneak pulling. Although I feel like sneak pulling is also inaccurate because it's usually very obvious, which also makes ninja pulling inaccurate in a way. Hey Jack, hope you're doing well. But yeah, that's what it originates from. That You Pull Your Tank video both covers ninja pulling is a problem, tanks that let people die because, oh, God forbid that you pulled for them by accident is a problem, healers that refuse to heal you because you're not playing the way they want, which, I mean, if we're going to be very, very narrow here, is kinda what Garzel did in that clip. But I think it wasn't something Garzel did for the rest of the duty, and it was more to, like, to prove a point. Oh, it's a low-level duty? Well, if it's that easy for you, why should I heal you? Oh, you died! How come? Oh, because the dungeon isn't trivial, you say, and I have to heal you. Ah, I see. Now we're getting somewhere. Can you use arm's length a bit? But yeah. It's like, it's the thing is also that silly that it's also a little bit about who was the bad guy first, right? But sometimes also, like, you know, be the bigger guy, like be the bigger person, I should say. As says, being on NA, I felt more comfortable to do that kind of thing as a healer. Now that is scary. Yeah, it's normal here. If you don't like the tank, you just don't heal him. Is that a thing? Let's see, Fubuki says, I had a party finder for Extreme 1 with a white mage whose strongest do 1000 DPS and was dying constantly. I thought about suggesting they look up guides for job and the fight, but ended up just leaving. Feels like you can't give advice in this game, really, in cases like that. In that case, Fubuki, I think what you ran into there is something that I have described in some of my mentor videos. You land in a duty that is reasonably high level, and the tank, for instance, clearly doesn't know how to use defensive cooldowns, and they're hardly using their rotation right. They barely using AoE. Where do you start at that point? Like, there's too much here. I can't teach you the entire job in one dungeon. And you've clearly not learned it. Where do I start? And then you just give up. It's also the reason why I feel like the further a cure bot, you know, those that just spam cure and stuff, get in the game, the less likely they're going to run into people correcting them. Because in the low-level dungeons, correcting them is just, don't use Cure 1, use Cure 2 instead. And when there's nothing to heal, just attack. Again, if in your, like, Vanguard, it's like, you shouldn't even be using Cure 2. Like, that should be your last resort. If you're using Cure 2, there's something wrong with the group. Whether it's you or the rest of the group is up for debate, but there's something wrong. It's not as simple as stop using Cure 1 at that point. There's too many things to unpack. So you just go, well, I mean, we can progress. Like, we can beat this. We'll just, like, we'll make it through, and then hopefully they'll realize that this was really tough, and they'll learn later. Because there's too much. How much damage does Glare 4 do? Like, approximately. Like 40k? I mean, you get 3 of those every 2 minutes, so if you just spend those, that would be 1k DPS. For Bugis is 60k. Well, even better. He says, considering how some people get angry just for asking them if they've seen a guide for a fight, I'm not surprised. I can explain that one. If you ask someone, can I give you a tip or can I give you some advice? That doesn't question their skill or anything. It means that you've observed that there's something you might be able to teach them. You haven't, like, swung at them and what they're doing and saying that it's wrong. If you say to someone, have you seen a guide for this fight? It's kind of like a loaded question because you're basically saying you're doing the fight wrong. Why? Like, that's not what you said, but that's how it can easily be interpreted, which is why people get mad when you ask something like that. Now, it's besides the point if the answer's no, they haven't watched the guide, then they're just like caught in their lie if they say yes. But that's the problem. It's the same as when people go do this thing where they send that link to that Don't Use Cure 1 website, is that instead of focusing on teaching the person to not use Cure 1, it feels like you're spending the time at the floor, your time to teach them, you're spending on a joke instead of trying to teach them. That is why, as I said, with the tanks that didn't AoE in Braveflock's Longstop, I said you would actually do even better if you used this action, like exact action name with auto-translate, on 2 or more targets. At that point, I'm basically saying what you're doing, which is 1, 2, 3 combos on AoE, is fine, but it could be better. So I'm not humiliating them by saying that they're garbage. I'm just saying, you know, you could be even better than that. It's really hard to do that sometimes, because if the problem is that the person hasn't watched a guide, it's probably pretty obvious. And it can be really hard to approach that. And you see me do that sometimes on our Savage streams, that if someone messes up a mechanic like twice in a row, I'll sometimes go, can we talk about this mechanic again? Do you mind? And then just go over it again, so that we know. The hard part is teaching someone something without them feeling attacked. That is why I think a really good tip to start with is, can I give you a tip? Or do you mind if I give you some advice? Instead of just, like, barfing it at them. Exactly, Nox. It's hard to word it in a non-condescending way, even if you're not condescending. Even if, it doesn't matter. And also that, Nori, the double optics there can come across as very passive-aggressive. Ironically, I'm pretty sure that came about because XD was the one people usually use to, like, disarm an aggressive message. But then it became something people used as basically a jail-free card to say something super passive-aggressive and then just finish with XD, and then it's suddenly okay. And then, like, then that didn't work anymore, and then people move on to the next thing. Personally, I'm not super confident in the double optics there, or whatever it's called. Exactly because I have seen it used to mask a different emotion. Exactly, Matthew. Exactly. Right. We could take one of Yak's clips. Do you have a preference, Yak, if you're still here? And the problem, Vivi, is that there's simply not much you can do. Because people will take it negatively anyway. You can eat, like, the thing is, consider this. Opening a statement with no offense, but usually implies that the thing that follows is going to be offensive. And furthermore, saying no offense, but actually directs the listener's attention to be offended. Like, you're basically going, by the way, listen up, this following thing is going to be offensive. But don't take it like that. No preference. Well, I feel like it would be interesting to see the follow-up on the E2S, where we switch the job. If I remember correctly, there was a problem specifically at some point where you get, like, dropped dangerously low in HP. Now, the problem is me remembering when that is. The Hellwind mechanic. I'm going to guess there's a high chance that that's when Living Dead is used. And given the length of the clip, you're either using Living Dead soon, if you're going to use it twice. Living Dead wasn't used. Oh. That is a... Didn't you use Hallowed Ground as Paladin? You know, Nox, that is actually a pretty funny thing. Nox says guides are condescending by nature, but because you have to go out of your way to find a guide, you're not gonna find them, so... It's actually pretty funny. A long time ago, I randomly got a message on... I can't remember what job it was, but like one of my job guides, and the person was annoyed that these guide makers always act like everything is so easy, grr. And the only thing... Is it me? Does it feel fuzzy compared to the original run? Maybe a bit. But the only thing I could say to this person... Wait a minute, did I miss Hellwind? Yes, I did. Oh! You blocked some of it by using TBN. But the only thing I could say back was, what do you want from me? Like, what do you want from me, man? Do you want me to like, every 5 sentences, I'll be like, alright, so, listen, okay. So for the opener, at level 50 as a red mage, like, you just, like, I know it's really hard, but, like, you start by casting the Thunder. Like, pre-casting it before the fight starts. And then, like... After that, you cast back. I know it's hard. Like, it's not easy. I'm not saying it is. And then, at some point, we have 50 of both mana types. Then, you have to actually make your way into melee range, which, it's kind of hard. Like, it's especially hard if you don't have any Coca-Cola left to use. But if you do, you can use that. Makes it a little bit easier. But then, you have to first use the step 1, and then the step 2, and then the step 3. And that's really hard, I know. But I'm sure, like, with some practice, you'll get it. You get where I'm going with this, right? Like, that's idiotic. But that's basically what they were kind of implying, that me just acting like everything's easy Exactly, silly. That is actually a really good point. That example sounds even more condescending, right? That sounds like a great video for 1st of April. But exactly, that actually sounds more condescending. Especially if you're saying, oh, I know it's really hard, about something that isn't hard. Oh, here comes Hellwind again. But it's a spell in waiting. Activate the fight or flight response. Yeah, that's exactly, that was what I was expecting, Yek, that it's just getting replaced, right? But yeah, like, the thing is, if you wanted to truly know how hard some of the things are, I can say that, to take an example, I've gotten slightly more in detail with this before. Condescending under the armor guide. Didn't Ham make that? Or did that not come off as condescending? But if you wanted a bit more clear indication of something actually being hard, for me, like, a lot of the time, the hard part is cut out. Like, to take, for example, most of my machinist guides, that clip where I demonstrate the level 100 rotation with opener and everything, usually takes over 30 minutes to shoot. Pun intended. Because one mistake, and then I might as well start over. And sometimes I'll get it mostly right and I'll be like, nah, I have to go again. It wasn't good enough. I hesitated for a microsecond, so now it's wrong. It's not that bad, Marcus. It's basically that the difference between playing the rotation, like, sort of on the fly, like, kinda off the cuff, is pretty good. But to play it perfectly is, like, it's very specific. You have to do it in a very specific way. And if you're the guide maker trying to demonstrate that, you have to do that. And to put it simply, Machinist's opener is as long as the fight, assuming no downtime, under optimal conditions. Machinist's opener starts when the fight starts, and then, like, it just continues. Like, there's a very specific answer to everything. Every time, like, every single GCD has to be something. Like, there are a few wiggle rooms. Like, here and there's something where you can choose between A or B. But for the most part, you could write out the rotation 10 minutes down the line and go, you have to do exactly this. But you don't need that to be strong as a machinist. It's just, if you're making a guide explaining how to do it perfectly, then the footage has to be perfect. Delane says, have you done any guides for crafting and gathering? I have a starter guide for gatherers and a starter guide for crafters. I also have a separate starter guide for fishers that go over most of the things you need, but they're from early Endwalker, I think? Like, some point in Endwalker, I believe. Something like that. They're still accurate. It's just that I intentionally went out of my way to not give, like, oh, use this macro and things like that, because that's something that changes anyway. If you're doing the opener properly, then the rest should come pretty naturally for pretty much all jobs anyway. See, the exact problem there, Silly, is that the optimal machinist rotation is, like, on the odd minute, you're supposed to use Chainsaw, I believe, just after you're using Automaton Queen. And Chainsaw comes out at a specific time. So you just have to do that. And to have the battery gauge you're supposed to at that time, you have to not hypercharge even though you have the resources. Optimally, your 2-minute burst also happens to come up at such a point the first time that you're overgauging, like you're wasting 5 heat gauge. And you might be saying, why? The answer is if you actually try to spend that heat gauge, then you'll be heat gauge short instead, and you'll be battery gauge a little bit short instead. So you just eat it. You just take, okay, I guess I'm losing 5 heat gauge. Like, that's how insanely optimized Machinist is when you're doing it perfectly. And it leads to a situation where when you're when you're practicing it, like the first 2 to 3 minutes of the fight, you just have to know what you're supposed to do. At some point it starts to like flow naturally probably, but the first several minutes has like a lot of possible mistakes you can make, and one of them, and you might as well just start over if you're trying to make a demonstration. I am actually surprised that you didn't need Living Dead at all, but I'm guessing that TBN helped insanely with that. Slightly better than Dark Knight Quietus. But I'm actually... like, I'm surprised that you didn't need Living Dead at all. But I guess the reason is that that first Hellwind does damage. It doesn't set you to low HP, it just does damage, so you can just block it. Wow. The key is, Sally, that the kind of perfection that goes in that Machinist rotation is not necessary. Like, that's parser stuff, right? But knowing what is perfect can help you to do better because you know what you're aiming for. Hey Gustavo, hope you're doing well too. So it is really complicated. And that, like, the thing is, I'm pretty sure it also took me 30 minutes to get the Bard rotation right. And I just want to underline that when you're saying, how is that possible? The thing, to give some indication of what's enough for me to go, oh, now I have to start over. If Bloodletter on Bard Heartbreak Shot, hits 3 charges for 1 second when it wasn't supposed to, then we try again. When you start over. Like, the only exceptions that are allowed are things like me saying in the guide, well, like, if you hit full soul voice gauge early, then, like, you use it at this specific time, so that's what I'll do. And yeah, I am, like, when I'm making those, I am, of course, being a little bit perfectionist, exactly because it has to be perfect, because it's going to be really hard to learn something if the teacher keeps getting it wrong, too. But it does have this effect, like, if we go back to the thing with someone saying it's condescending, like, the guides are condescending, is that all the failure required to make that guide isn't included. So it sounds condescending. Like, I don't know if it would actually seem less condescending if I left, like, a blooper reel at the end where I just show all the footage of me getting it wrong. Like, I don't think it would help, because those that would actually be offended by it wouldn't reach that. And yeah, I do that too, Sally. If someone adds something that I got wrong, or something that, like, is an addition that I didn't include, then I usually thank them in the comments. But yeah, on the Crafter-Gatherer thing, I do have a starter guide for Gatherers and Crafters, and they should both be, like, up-to-date mechanically, but we have gotten new actions that I, of course, don't cover in them. And part of the reason why I haven't revisited Crafters and Gatherers is simply because, let's just say that I leveled all of my Gatherers and Crafters with minimal time investment in Dawntrail. I haven't really crafted anything like for realsies in Dawntrail, and I've done very minimal amounts in Endwalker as well. So I don't think that I'm very well equipped to make a guide on this. And there's also the part that a large percentage of crafters, they don't need to get all of this explained. They don't need all this. They're good if you just give them the macro. Just what macro do I need for 40 durability things? What macro do I need for 70 durability things? And like, what macro do I need for 80 durability things? Like, just give me that. I'm good. And I didn't include that in the guides because they change. And what's good can depend on what your gear is. And if, like, the guide that is supposed to get you started starts by going, well, you need all this gear, then you can play. Oh, that's pretty cool, Leaderhead. But yeah, exactly. That's enough for a crafter. For a gatherer, like, for Fisher, it gets a little bit more complicated because, like, it can depend on what you're going for. But with gatherers, it's like a little bit of the same. It's just like there is a correct, like, there's almost a correct answer to how to, like, gather collectibles. And there is a correct answer on how to, like, mass collect the correct thing, or mass gather. Which means that the kind of guides that I make is not a very good matchup for crafter-gatherer. That's why I just kind of moved away from it. It's also that I've just not spent as much time with it, so I just don't feel that I have the, like, as much a routine in it to make such a video. See, Hellwind sets HP to 1, but Shadow Vigil heals me if I get below 50%. I combined that with TBN. Yeah, that does explain that. Right. But that was very nice. Exactly, Bronto. Like, the things that I included in the original guide were like what the different things do, how the different things work, like what are the different stats, what do you use for what, etc. But ultimately, what most people, I think I even included some like basic leveling tips for gatherers and crafters. But ultimately, what most people need is just like, how do I level it quickly? What gear do I need? How do I get it? And how do I use it? That's it. And the players that want to get a little bit more like figure it out themselves probably don't actually want a guide when it really comes to it, right? So ironically, those that might find it helpful to get everything explained don't want it explained. They wanted to figure it out themselves in the first place. Right, Sip is here. Then we could look at his. So, Sip recorded his point of view of one of our M2S re-clears. You can see I'm there. Like, I'm right there. I forgot to change to my honeybee outfit. I think only Shaq remembered, actually. I don't think this was Tuesdays. I'm pretty sure this was a week, like, the week prior to that. Seems like it's just... Never mind. Yeah, that is a stream. That is... Oh, look. Huh. Well, you can't see it, but apparently the next video it suggests me is my Gunbreaker guide. What an attractive red mage! Have I seen these people before? Probably. That's my raid team for the Savage re-clears. The reason why I'm muting it is because the Discord audio is there, so that might be very distracting. With me talking over myself. Just before we start, did you want something specific out of this sip, or did you just want us to, like, see what's going on? This Memorial tank looks familiar. What if they make very helpful guides? You don't remember the run? Well, this is going to be interesting then. You know, it is kind of funny. I never realized that you were this close to the boss. I would have assumed that you'd been as far away as, like, Milo, for instance. Can we have spreads first? That's actually pretty effective. That was pretty minimal movement. And we have pairs. Do you dash that? That looked a little weird. Well, in fairness, Silly, if you're playing Pictomancer, you're probably paired with a tank. So, this is like extremely minor. If you don't need the Lily, you could technically use like Rapture here. And the reason why I'm saying that is because like the GCD went a little bit. Puma says, how do shared tank busters actually work? Is the damage reduced per tank or player inside in the AoE, and will a party survive if they take it as 7? Basically, Puma, imagine a stack marker where it like normally stack markers distribute the damage evenly between all players present. So it does X damage divided by number of players present. A shared tank buster shows how many it can be divided to at most. The key is a normal stack marker does X divided by number of players to everyone there. A shared tank buster does X divided by number of players, but only up to a certain number of players, typically 2 or 3, depending whether it's a raid or an alliance raid. But it will do the full damage of, like, after that division to everyone. So if it's a 2 stack, so it's 2 tanks, that is expected, then if there's another player in there, they will also take half of the damage. Like, it'll just mean that 3 players take half of the damage instead of 2 players taking half the damage. It's, as Zav says, it's what's called an enumeration stack. You might have seen these, like, blue circles with, like, 2 crystals swirling around them. They happen sometimes. They mean that bad stuff happens if only 1 takes them. Usually less bad stuff happens if 2 players take them. But if there's 3 in there, the 3rd person just also gets hit most of the time. Sometimes it only hits 2 targets, but I'm pretty sure most of the time it'll just hurt everyone. But yeah, you could have used a Lily there if you wanted to, if you didn't need it. You use the Lily there That's also fine. The Good King Moggle praise be. Double tank buster only hits 2. I'm guessing that it hits the player that is of course the target, plus the closest player to them. Is that consistent? Or is it unique to King Moggle? The M3 has tank buster. Does it? Really? I could have sworn that it would kill everyone involved. I mean, it is a relatively easy thing to test. You just need to get like M3S. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. So, here's a funny thing. Let's take this. Because there was actually a correct move here. It's not very easy when you're in the moment, but there was a correct move. Two hearts of space. One. If there's 3 players in the circle, then the main target gets 2 hearts. So if Sip had stepped out and just stayed out, then this would have been resolved normally. With everyone being okay. So Sip just had to step out. It's also bad positioning on my part. That's possible. Maybe could have been a bit closer, but... Point is, there was a way to resolve this. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Yeah, tank busters should be the same blue color as the tank roll. Wouldn't that be weird? If mechanics that target healers are always green? But yeah, if M3S's tank busters hit only 2, it would be easy to test. Because you just need like a group, and then when the first knuckle sandwich comes, you can test it. Let's see, this one is pointing there. I'm not sure if it's pointing through the range or if it's pointing at the melees. Exactly, Gleaming. That is why I immediately jumped to healers. Like, oh, tank mechanics should be blue? How about if healer mechanics were green? Wouldn't that be weird? Blue is already used as stuff you should stand in. Okay, Ali. Does that include, oh, I don't know, like those like knockbacks where you die if you stand in the... That's a different kind of blue. That kind of blue is lethal. Hey, Connor. Hope you're doing well. That one... Is that one pointing at the healers? That one's pointing at the tanks. That one is... Is that one pointing at the healers or the tanks? That one's pointing at the healers. Oh boy. Oh no. Oh, Ham got pushed into the center. Oh, the melees. Ah, almost. We call it Kobe strat, Ali, because we learned it from a person on YouTube called Kobe. who I think is Australian. Not 100% sure. I think. This was the one where Girhin died, came back up, and then died again. We're gonna need you back up to do a mechanic, Girhin. Come on down. Oh yeah, this was the chaos attempt where somehow it worked out. Oh, that was pretty smart. Just off into Narnia. Girhin dies again. Oh man. You know, the saddest part there is that we have pairs, which means that if Naomi got up and paired correctly, they'd get hit with the simp. If they stayed down, whoever they're supposed to pair with would probably get hit instead. Which is what happened. So far, 2 stacks. But yeah, that strategy we use for alarm pheromones 1, sometimes it works really well, sometimes it... Recently, I feel like Ham and I gets targeted quite furiously. This was the week prior, yes. So like I could just bring this one up for anyone who needs the tip, for anyone who might be proccing on M2S or might be like re-clearing and having trouble with this one. It doesn't really, like, as long as you like agree on where you're going, that's pretty much fine. But the key here is that the middle of each quadrant that is safe is the arrow to the, like, to your right, like when you're looking at the bee, to the right of them, or their left. So like this one, or I think this one. And if you go anywhere else, you're either going to like box in your like your light party so that they can't really find space to put their puddle where they need to be, or you're going to like to hope that you know which way around the bees go. Because if you knew when the first puddle is happening, like when you're choosing where to stand, if you already knew by then that it's going clockwise, then you can position yourself to like give more space to the people that come after you. If you know it's going counterclockwise, you can do the same. But the problem is that you know that information now. You know it now, so now you could actually adjust, but if you adjust incorrectly, it doesn't work. We see it's counterclockwise, because the bee spawned to the right. The problem is, it's not that arrow. That kinda worked. The reason why I'm a little bit more aware of this time around is because we had a little bit of a problem with this on our re-clears this week. But the reason why it was a problem this week is because there was overleaning, but it went the wrong way. So if you do exactly what happened here, where Sip was first, if you did exactly the same, but the bees went clockwise, then the person coming after Sip would have nowhere to stand. Which is why it's typically better to just like go in the middle. So like there's enough space either way. It also makes it easier for people to know where to stand. If like overlean to help, you might just have the next person get sniped by the bees. It's really weird, but like that's the reason. In this one we've gotten pretty good at spreading out for. Sniped by the bees. Yep. And we have pairs. 50% of the time it works, 100% of the time, exactly. But genuinely, sometimes it works extremely well, and sometimes it just doesn't seem to work at all. Let's see, we have DPS on the short fuse. Not saying Nozaril. Hope you're doing well. It doesn't even have to be that complicated. And those are spreads. This part is not red mage friendly. I could imagine. I don't think it's caster friendly. Oh, Liturgy of the Bell. The forced detonation. The reason why Liturgy of the Bell stood out as weird to me was more that I was thinking, wouldn't it have made more sense? Like, I don't know, I'm guessing that the AoEs come too infrequently for Liturgy of the Bell to be super helpful here, but I would have assumed that Liturgy would have been better spent here. Usually have my bell on cooldown so it appears during Rotten Heart. See, that was what I was thinking, Sip. That wouldn't it be better to use it there? Boom. This arena is pretty funky. It has a unique backdrop and everything. Not only that, but it has all that and you don't have time to look at it. And it goes away once the fight is over. You know... Oh, I can't remember. Is it the hard or the normal version of Saint Morgiane? That is that has the push. It is basically identical to the Ant boss in Lunar Subterrane. Except the Lunar Subterrane one you can use knockback immunity on. M4S Phase 2 shows sad family images of the cat girl in the background, which is also something you'll never see ever. Really? Yeah, I mean, Strat, you could have said that it shows pictures of a clown in the background, and I would have had to take your word for it. Because you're not looking at it. Did you see the... Yeah, exactly. Did you see the gorilla dancing in the background? Exactly. No. I was focused on something else. I mean, Sip, that went really well. I wonder what made it so that your liturgy was ready at that time. Did you forget to use it at a different time? Also, you can all see it. Sip, extract your materia from your gear. It's free money. And you need it, clearly. I mean, timing with M2S is so much worse than M3S. You know, in fairness, I've noticed as we've done more and more reclears that that I've gotten more sloppy with my usage of Reprisal and Shake It Off. Amy, who else? Hope you're doing well. And yeah, probably, Sid. It's also that because we've gotten better at it, we've gotten more acquainted with how much damage stuff does. We've gotten, like, we've gotten more fast and loose with it. We're like, you could survive that. Like, for example, when we were proccing on M2S, I would have been scared of calling, like, the next pair to go high five when we're not topped up. But it's not that scary. Like, the problem is the follow-up. But I think that then went reasonably well. I do think it's funny that you do the ethereal shift out for the pairs in the start of the fight, but then you had to like walk halfway back again. Wouldn't it have been easier to just run out when you have to run that far back again? You know what I mean? Like, wouldn't it have been easier to just run out to the point that Naomi needs you at? Don't you have a list of set mechanics when to use reprisal and such? Yes and no, Gazel. Like, when it's a problem, we have discussed it so that we know. And to some degree, the way it works is that I know that Ham uses reprisal on X kinds of mechanics, and I use reprisal on Y kinds of mechanics as a result. But sometimes we just, like, my reprisal is available for so long that I'm like, I can't remember. Is this the one that I do it on? And then I just use it because, like, I use reprisal on a dangerous mechanic. I can get more uptime if I use Rocket, though. Can you? Because, as I said, you spend time running it back afterwards. I think that's just what it looks like to me. Maybe we could take a Sally's clutch moment. This is that one, right? Is it cat POV time next walking stream? I mean, it could be. Is the clear? Oh yeah, there is a... This has been prog. And Sally is the Pictomancer.
Remember to watch for halves.
I've popped everything I've got. And then...
Wait!
That doesn't look right. I'm guessing this was so early that the proper strategy for conga lines wasn't entirely set in stone yet. They just have both tanks together for the explosion. Boom, and then too soon.
Wait, you guys can still do this. So, LB.
Oh. Yeah, I'm just going far away.
Hopefully.
Everyone else straight up run into the stack and then silhouette me.
Yeah,
Everybody go kill themselves. Go kill yourself. Go kill yourself. Go kill yourself.
I mean, it's not swearing, but just coming from the streamer here, don't do that. You need to say in Minecraft. Let's take that one again. I'm more saying for the memes, but yeah, genuinely, that can also be a problem to say a bit too much. I'm pretty sure. It's pretty funny. Yeah, I guess the strategy would be... I'm guessing what could be a move here is to have one healer run... Well, the one healer run up have the DPS help them with taking theirs, and then just have the rest die. Like immediately after, and then just have the healer rest everyone.
Yeah, I'm just going far away.
Everyone else straight up run into the
I'm not sure if it's a problem, Sally, but it is something where I'm like, I could see it be a problem, right? Kaboom! And full rest. Just save the healer! That is, the other healer died anyway. That is pretty cool. And yeah, that is genius, and you had exactly enough time to get it. You had exactly the time to get it, which was also impressive. Now that is quick thinking. And you're saying this was the kill, yeah? Well, that is wild. Go KYS in Minecraft, in Minecraft, in Minecraft. That was pretty genius. I have a feeling that maybe that wouldn't have like, consider that could have just as well have been like, oh quick, healer limit break so we can get people up again, and then you still have to do the mechanic, whereas this strategy was a lot more effective. No worries, Sally. If it was really a problem, I would have muted. I just like lowered the volume and started talking over it for a reason. That is cool. It's extra cool when it actually is the kill. Let me just check in one more time. I have a clip from Cyanide, one from Jake, one more from Garsel, and I have more stuff from Bjerk, and one from Shaq. Oh, Zarian, if you go into the clip review room on the community Discord server, you just have to find the clip Sally posted. If you click that, it'll get you straight to the clip. Yeah, fair enough, Sally. Also because I just closed and deleted the link. Yeah, Shaq is here. We could take that one. Let's see. Shaq mentioned something about 2-minute bursts and such. Oh, also, that is true. We did have a short clip from Ali. A really short one. Let's take that one before I forget. It's a little harder for me to remember when it is like a video you just sent straight. Does Control-Shift-T or something not reopen tabs on Firefox? It might, Ali. I'm not going to test that live. Who knows what kind of tab it might reopen? So we have a clip here. I believe it has something to do with Ali not being in range of something, but despite being so. I have to do it for science. No, absolutely not. Okay, let's take that one again. That guy's lizard collection. So, if you've never played on a poor connection, let's say, then it might be difficult to understand what's happening here. Basically, your game, like in broad strokes, it might not be exactly how it goes. Your game recognizes, like your client recognizes that you're in range, you click the attack, you send the request to the server. By the time it reaches the server goes, well, I mean, you're here and the mob is like there now, so you're not actually in range. And then just says no, Lamau, returns that to you. And then your client goes, never mind, the server says no. Which means you have to be even closer, or like be running ahead for it to work. You'll also see this even with a good connection, that if you're like chasing a pack while spamming your circle AoE, like as a healer or something, you might not hit all of the mobs, despite clearly the animation is on all of the mobs. You only hit one or two, or maybe none. Because as far as the server is concerned, the mobs are actually a little further forward than where you used, I don't know, Art of War. It's kind of the same thing, but this is the reason why when some people say, well, it doesn't matter, like the tank can just carry everything all the way over to the wall, the jobs can just AoE anyway. Not entirely. If the attack that the DPS and or healer is using requires a target, and the target has to be within a certain distance, the attack might straight up just not work. Even though they're in range. Because it keeps saying no. Despite their efforts. I think this is Wanderer's Palace. And also, sometimes it'll just say no because you're not facing the right way, because the mob is on a different side of you. But the point is that if you have, like, even with, like, my 20 MS in EU, even with that, it can sometimes happen. But if you have more than that, it is very likely that you just can't, like, it just won't let you. If you're a melee DPS, you just can't. It'll just say no. You're not close enough. You're not close enough. You're not close enough. With longer range, it's less of a problem, but that is one of the reasons why AoE, like for realsies, doesn't start until the tank stops moving. Like, that is one of the reasons. And that is also part of the reason why I generally recommend that you pull the mobs until you reach your destination. And your destination is usually where the last pack is. If you're not sure if there's another pack, you can of course keep running until the game says no. But if you move the mobs all the way to the door, on the one hand you're saving like a few seconds of running to the door once the pack is over. But there's a reasonable chance that what you're actually doing is giving the mobs a few seconds to punch you now, while the DPS and the healer are still waiting for you to stop before they can attack for real. Like, they are waiting for you to stop moving so that they are safe to start attacking. Like, that is something worth considering. That doesn't necessarily mean that it is wrong to pull all the way up to the wall. If you don't know, you don't know. But that is the reason. Now, the thing we're looking for is demolish. Nope, 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 nope. There it worked. You can also waddle to the door while fighting and dodging mechanics. You kind of. The problem again, Zarian, is it depends on your team. If your healer's a white mage, you absolutely can't. And if your healer is a scholar or a white mage, you will have a boundary set by Sacred Soil or Asylum sometimes. If your healer is an astrologer, you might have a boundary of Earthly Star, but Earthly Star is humongous, so maybe not. And And some of your DPS might have a similar issue. Like the ninja can't use Doton before you stop moving. The summoner can't use Slipstream before you stop moving. And to some capacity, by always moving, you just incentivize the Black Mage and the Pictomancer to overshoot you and run past you, just in case you keep moving. Because if they put down ley lines or the grass, maybe they can't reach anymore because you kept running. And that might sound a little wild because often the last pack is near the door, but there are dungeons where the door is really far away. So like there's a lot of incentive to not do that. Isn't the rule as a tank that you wait until the ninja dotons and then pull? Oh man. Oh, that's a classic, Ali. Like I feel like that's just the gold standard now. The best you can do is just skip your hammers and just go straight to the Hyperphantasia stuff. Although that might not even save you. So big F's in the chat for that. Yuri says, best tank I had. I'm guessing that's sarcastically. Was always barely out of my soil while running away from Doton AoE, thinking it's an enemy AoE. The funniest one I've heard, Yui, simultaneously the funniest and saddest one is, get this. Tank pulls pack out of Doton. Ninja says to tank, it's okay, it's mine, you can stand in it, it does damage to the enemies, not you. And the tank says, no, it's an enemy AoE, and refuses to change course. The person who put it down explained to you that it's theirs. Actually, there's an even dumber one. I've heard an even dumber one. Tank complains to the white mage that they put down Asylum and pulls the mobs out of the Asylum. Because allegedly, Asylum heals the mobs. How? Why? What? That would be exceptionally easy to test. Wouldn't Medica also then? No, Bronto, because you see, that wouldn't work because Medica says right here that it heals nearby party members and the mobs are not in your party. That is, of course, entirely different from Asylum, who says here that it... Clearly, it says here that it envelops a designated area in a veil of succor. Pay close attention to the text now. Then it says it grants healing over time to everyone who enters. Everyone! Other alliances... Random mobs, that random critter, everyone gets healed. Everyone. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that is what it says, right? That is absolutely what it says. I don't see it say self and any party members here. I'm pretty sure it heals the other alliances as well. I'm like pretty sure. My fat cat gets healed. Yeah, exactly. Finally. Should we keep an eye on Sip? But genuinely, you know what it would take to test this? Like, that's the funniest thing about people making those outlandish claims, is that if that tank is so scared of Doton, all it takes is that you go, okay, can you wait a moment, tank? Let me just show you. Just wait a second. Let me just show you. Just Just stand in this for a second. Do you see how it doesn't damage you? Then they might say, well, that's because we're not in combat. And it's like, well, if I produced it, how can it be an enemy, right? How can it be hostile? And even if it would hurt you in combat, why would they design it like that? And you can go the same way with Asylum. You can just go, like, all it takes is go, okay, everyone, stop, like, hurt the enemies a bit and then stop attacking. Do you see how the mobs don't receive healing? Do you see how it doesn't pop up and heal them? Like, it's so easy to demonstrate that that's untrue. That, like, that's what makes it the most insane, right? It has to be trolling, it has to be. See, the thing is, Teiruru, I've seen... too many... Oh no! I think I actually killed someone with my dot on. The thing is, Teiruru, I have seen claims that are just as absurd as these, but are slightly harder to demonstrate. Said in all seriousness. Which is why I genuinely believe that they're not trolling. They legitimately believe what they're saying is true. Right. I think we can get the Shaq's clip. Are there any particular high points you'd want to check, Shaq? You can see that you mentioned something about the 2-minute burst. Reaper's a little strange in this level range, so that might be something worth talking about. But are there any specific things? Mainly Reaper basics? Okay, well, let's take a few pulls. We take a few pulls and we take a boss. And that might get it. So let's start with seeing here. We have a Scholar, so your 2-minute burst is dictated by your Arcane Circle and their chain stratagem ultimately, if they are even kept near each other. But ultimately your Arcane Circle, right? One tip, just this is actually like melee DPS tip. Sprint now, so you get 20 seconds. Even if, like, if you sprint at the time where you actually sprinted, you would probably still had more time left from sprinting now. And also, this is not something Shaq can do anything about, but the tank or the machinist should interrupt that. Otherwise, that anemone is going to be really mad. And looks like no one did it. And the reason why you'd want to sprint for that is, of course, so you can more easily keep up. It looks about right. So the problem here is that you're level 74, so your burst at this level is kinda... you don't have Gluttony, you don't have Enshroud, you don't have Plentiful Harvest, so the best you can do is basically just Arcane Circle now. And then, like, Spinning Scythe into Grimswathe, into Guillotine, and then just AoE until you can do it again. Like, you don't really have much else. You did part of it. So, I did forget on the first pull. You know, the funny thing there is that this will lead to another problem. Indirect problem. It's really hard for me to tell because I would need to, like, flip through all of the mobs to see for certain. But if the Scholar used Chain Stratagem here, then you're already offset. There is a real possibility that the Scholar didn't use Chain Stratagem here, because a lot of Scholars in this level range will not use Chain Stratagem on AoE. Like, who do they use it on? The extra large anemone, by the way. But if you use Arcane Circle on the second pull, then Arcane Circle will not be ready for the boss. If you use it on the first pull, there is a chance it'll be ready for the boss. But because you miss it here, you're probably going to like misalign with chain stratagem. And it's a really minor thing. I noticed my mess up and saved it for the boss. Okay, that would solve that. A tip that I would suggest for like DPS in general is in a pack like this. There's two things, and just to be clear, I'm being really like detailed here. You don't have to do all these things so perfectly. Important what you're targeting. Right now, I would say there are two really good targets. The juiced up anemone might be a good idea because it's probably causing problems for the healer and or the tank. Another good option is the FFXIV because it is the healthiest mob in the pack. The reason why what you're targeting matters is because that's what you're auto-attacking. It adds up. It also is the most likely to be the mob that you'll hit with everything you've got. It of course also has a direct impact on how you have to angle yourself for the pack and everything, but that is something you could do. Another thing that is a more Reaper-specific tip is it might be worthwhile to like either tab through the mob list, like just tab through all of the mobs, or like click specific ones you're suspicious of to see if everyone has that design. Like you used Whirl of Death here. But like that is something you could do, like just click through the mobs to see, did I hit everyone? If there's only one who's missing it, it might not be worth it, but it is something you can do. Another tip, of course, is that this is also like slightly, like really specific stuff, but because your Grim Swathe and your Guillotine are frontal cones, you're positioned well for those, but your Nightmare Scythe and Spinning Scythe are circles. Let me just double check this to be sure. So Spinning Scythe and Nightmare Scythe are 5 yalms around you. Grim Swathe and Guillotine are 8 yards. I'm pretty sure it's in front of you, but the Grim Swathe does say it's they both specifically say that they're a cone, but that's an 8 yalm cone in front of you, which actually means that like they are like they're basically a half circle in front of you that is like 60% bigger. So if you can hit everything with Grim Swathe and Guillotine, that doesn't mean you can hit everything with Nightmare Scythe and Spinning Scythe. Of course, if you hit everything with Whirl of Death where you're standing, then you'll hit everything with Spinning Scythe and Nightmare Scythe. But that is something you could consider. Back when Tenkagoken was a cone, and like back when you had Fuga, but not the, what's it called, Fuko, it was pretty normal for samurais like run out of the pack, cleave in front of them, and then like run in for the finishers, and then out and in and out and in. Like, looks weird, but yeah. And yet Tenkagoken used to be a cone in front of them. Hey Luis, hope you're doing well. And also that, Zaf. Like, that's also the thing, like, playing perfectly to that chain stratagem is a really minor detail. Remember when Warrior had a cone attack? You see, the funny thing is, Vivi, that Warriors were mad because they actually nerfed the range of Overpower when they made it a circle. Like, it used to be like a really long, like extra long cone. And then they made it a circle and a little shorter. So here we go again. That's pretty good. I think you missed the FFXIV, and you're actively missing the FFXIV right now. That's actually really awkward. Rockbreaker was also a cone, yes. That is why your character does like some sort of like clapping motion in front of them for the AoE. I think, like just on a side note, I think Yannick also said this, Shaq, and that's also kind of what I'm getting at, is that at this level, Reaper's Burst is really awkward. Like, the best you can do is stockpile Soul Gauge and just kind of hold it. Hergeist says, is it better to hold your 2-minute burst to the boss instead of the trash? Isn't there the saying that the trash is the hardest part in the dungeon? That is correct, Hergeist. You should be using your cooldowns on cooldown, even in a dungeon. We already actually covered the Arcane Circle thing here that Shaq forgot on the first pack, and then to not like misalign later, they just held it until the boss. But you should always be using your cooldowns. The only exception is if like you don't actually get full value out of it because the pack is going to die, then there might be reason to hold it. But use your stuff on cooldown. Like, the funny thing is, if you use your 2-minute burst on the first pull, and like your 1-minute burst again on the second pull, it will all be most like in your average group, it will all be ready for the boss. In a weaker group, it'll absolutely be ready for the boss. It might even get ready in the middle of the fight if it's a really weak group. In a strong group, it will not be ready for the boss. But then again, you don't need it because you're so strong, right? Like, the exact scenario where your burst will not align with the opener on the boss in a dungeon because you used it on the first pull is a group that is so strong that it doesn't matter. And if you choose to hold your cooldowns for that reason, then as a result of you holding them, now it will take long. And now it would have made it. It's like, there's no winning. You have to use your cooldowns. And there could be exceptions when people are like, there's double dancer, then maybe you'd want to like alternate the technical finish and things like that. But ultimately, use your cooldowns on cooldown. Very aggressively. You might be right on that, Shaq. Let's actually just rewind for that real quick. What were they doing? A little hard to see. Well, they were using No Mercy at least. Oh. Well, you know what happened there. Oh, while running with the pack. Yeah, okay, fair enough. So this is it. Like, this is a really... Let me just like rewind to this. In this level range, the optimization Reapers can do is very minimal. There's not that much you can do. But there is something you can do. Isn't much, but you can use something. It's a little bit comparable to how Paladins do things, where, you know, like they prioritize their weaker combos while not in fight or flight, and then they spend. And then when they are in fight or flight, they prioritize the bigger damage things. In a similar fashion, in this level range, when Arcane Circle is active, you of course want to make sure that Death's Design is on the target. You figured this out a little bit later that you had forgotten about that. These things happen. But while a raid buff, whether it's Chain Stratagem or Arcane Circle in this case, is running, you'd rather wait with extending Death's Design until afterwards if Death's Design is going to last the buff window itself. So like if you had 11 seconds of Death's Design, you would probably die just like, or maybe 12 seconds. You'd refresh after Arcane Circle. And like do it twice maybe to get it up to 60 seconds. Which is to say, when you're benefiting from buffs, you can let Death's Design drop lower while it is running. And when buffs are not up, you should prioritize Death's Design really high, except like if the duration is so long already that the boss is going to die first before you need to re-extend it. On the other hand, what you can do to like prop up your burst window a bit is, if Arcane Circle, for instance, is coming off cooldown in a little bit, you could hold up to 100 soul gauge, and then, you know, Arcane Circle, Bloodstalk, Gibbet Gallows, Bloodstalk, Gibbet Gallows. That is something you could do for a small burst. Notably, this shouldn't come at the expense of delaying Soul Slice. Like, Soul Slice should still be used on cooldowns. Like, if Soul Slice is coming off cooldown, you just go Bloodstalk, Gibbet Gallows, Soul Slice, and then continue. But it does mean that you can sort of maybe guarantee that you'll get, like, 2, maybe even 3 Gibbet and Gallows into your burst. It's not much. Like, but that is as crazy as it gets at level 74. There's a lot more you can do when you get higher level. Like 76, you have Gluttony instead. And at level 80, well, you could stockpile an Enshroud. Rontum says, the last time I had 2 dancers, I was one of them and partnered the other dancer, and Tank got mad at me saying dancer buffs don't work on other dancers. I have a Mythbuster video on this. Standard finish gives a different giver and receiver buff, which means that 2 dancers partnering each other will benefit from both standard finish buffs. Because one of them will be a giver standard finish, and the other one will be a receiver standard finish. Devilment does not have that luxury. If both dancers use Devilment at the same time, one of them just goes gone. Technical finish also does not have that luxury. If both dancers use technical finish at the same time, you just get 1 buff, essentially. Like, both dancers will apply the Esprit effect to the raid. So, like, they'll get crazy amounts of Esprit, but you'll only get 1 buff. And that is pretty funny, Bronto. In fairness, I would say that if you're not sure, just having, like, in a double dancer composition, which is already not optimal, it might not be that bad to just have one dancer partner the tank and the other one partner the healer. Then, like, if both dancers choose to Devilment at the same time, then everyone gets Devilment, which is also fine. But yeah, things like the dancer thing with standard finish, even if you try to explain it, that person might just like go, no, it doesn't work like that. And then if you ask them, have you tested it? Because I have, then they might just be mad at you anyway, because you had the audacity to question their authority. It's the same thing with people being mad that you have the that you could possibly consider using regen while the tank is pulling, even though that hasn't been a problem for like 5 years now. That works. Oops. Uh-oh. Wait, what? So, let me just take this one. This is a mechanic that I know people have trouble with here and there. So, like, let's take that one real quick. The Lance Blood. My tip for dealing with this mechanic. Of course, find somewhere safe initially. This advice doesn't work to get you started. But, like, you can see that one is danger in a bit. So, like, go over here, like, if you're not sure on the circle, like, around here. You can see this one is coming, so maybe over there even. Like, as a melee, you have a positionals, but you're a Reaper now. Girihin, it hasn't been a problem since Shadowbringers made tanks generate Lamau amounts of enmity. Like, yes, they made it completely trivial in Endwalker, but it wasn't a problem in Endwalker. But yes, 2.5 years if we're taking that. 5 years, I believe, if we were taking Shadowbringers. Yeah, here... So the trick is... The boss will never replace an explosion immediately with a new circle. So if you go into that explosion right now, that's a safe spot. Guaranteed until the next explosion. 100%. Guaranteed. That spot is safe now. So you could just run over there. Then you could run over there. And then you could run over there. And then, like, there's of course a moment where there's nothing, but now you would have run over there. Like, that is how I usually do it. Lots of running, yeah, it's a little harder if you're a caster. Like, you might not want to do all that, but you could just do that. It's better than getting hit a lot. Oh, soul slice. There it is. Oop, soul slice. Oh no. That is quite sped up. I think it went decently well. It looks like you had some trouble with Lance Blood. But like that's not a Reaper problem. That's just like learning the mechanics. I see what the problem is, yeah. The Gunbreaker's just using Lightning Shot. The trick there, like if we just take that for a moment, like DPS advice. If you have aggro, then like yeah, you can continue to try to AoE a bit, but your target destination is wherever the tank is now. Like you want to like deliver those mobs to the tank as best you can and not stop in the middle of it. Something that sometimes can be helpful as well is, and this is also awkward, part of the reason why your destination is immediately run to the tank is because the longer you take to get there, the longer those mobs take to get there. And as a Reaper, if you can help it, you'd rather only use Whirl of Death once, not twice. So... So if you can make sure those mobs get there sooner, and then just like Spinning Scythe, Nightmare Scythe until then you're like, that would be better. And you like, this is generally DPS things. It's like, if there's mobs not in the blob yet, it might be better to like hold your burst for a second still. Like, that Bloodstalk can wait until the mobs are there. Like, again, that's like optimization stuff. It's fine. I have a feeling that I'll end up repeating myself going through this dungeon now. But if there are any specific things, Jack, that you feel like I might have glossed over, then we can focus on those a bit again. Did you use Arcane Circle on the last pull? Oh, the boss ended with Arcane Circle. Did the chat break again? Oh, never mind. I did mess up at the second boss, other than this. And then that was a normal run. Well, let's take that then. Focus on the second boss, and then see. This bag of chips I'm eating says chips enlarged to show texture, but it's the small bag, so the chips are actually larger than the image. That Let me just do this. Chat entering observation mode. Yeah, well, it was more that earlier, Luis. There was like a full minute where the chat just didn't work, and then when it finally came back, I got like 2 pages worth of text, so I was wondering if that happened again. That kind of worked. Well, actually, there's something funny here. So, Reaper has an insanely strong 1-2-3 combo. Given how long you've been walking with this Infernal Slice in your pocket, ready to go, I would probably personally feel inclined to go, I need to use Infernal Slice now before it ends. But you're of course in a little bit of a bind here, because you want to use Arcane Circle, you want to use Bloodstalk, you also you have a Soul Slice waiting, but you have to use Bloodstalk first. So you have 4 or 5 options. I would say in this very moment, I would say that the best sequence you can do is Late Weave Arcane Circle, Infernal Slice, Bloodstalk, Gibbet Gallows, Soul Slice, Bloodstalk, Gibbet Gallows. Just because Infernal Slice is kind of strong. And the thing that caught my eye on that is that your Infernal Slice combo ran out when you used Soul Slice. Thinking. That kind of works, sure. Find a beam. Are you sure it was you who goofed it? Looks like the tank forgot something. There was a little bit of a thinky there again. You didn't have to just Shadow of Death yet, you could have just used Soul Slice. You could use Arcane Crest for that. Wouldn't really change much. I think the healer would heal a little bit anyway. Yeah, they use Indomina anyway. What you could do there is when this route is coming up, is stack closer to other players, then you can AoE. It only really works if everyone's working together, but you can do that. Maybe the Scholar would feel inclined to use Art of War if yours and their route was overlapping. You should probably use Shadow of Death. Oh no! Yeah, okay, you know what? I do that too, Shaq. I have done that too. I have done that too. To your question, Louis, yeah, basically, as Ali says, the positionals are full quarters. So the front, if you had a front positional, is the 25%, like the 90-degree angle that is in front of the boss. Like that arrow, and then 45 degrees and 45 degrees. the flanks are these arrows and then 45 degrees out. And you can actually tell this is the 45 degrees to this side. Because the moment this ends is where the backside starts. So that's the 90-degree angle for the backside. That's like... That happens, Shaq. But yeah, like there was a clear one there. Well, we could quickly jump to... We have to see the funny. We have to see the funny one. It is Don Meg. Hey, Coltress. Hope you're doing well. Scholar's a sprinter. Machinist is kind of confident, but they're not sprinting. Oh, the Scholar got punished. Machinist is in the lead. Oh, Machinist made it there. Who will come first, Reaper or Gunbreaker? The Gunbreaker gets the second place. The Scholar's coming back. Oh man, it's really long when you're last. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. But yeah, I don't think that it was that bad, Shaq. I think you did fine. Some minor things, and in this level range, your 2-minute burst is kind of... You don't have that much, but it'll get more interesting at higher level. Also, at higher level, you'll quickly realize that there isn't really any reason to hold Soul Gauge once you have Shroud Gauge. But I think you're doing... It's a good start, Shaq. It's a good start. However... we are already past when I intend to end streams. And I was actually invited to do something around this time. So I think this would be a good time to round up. I do see that I have like a bunch of clips that I didn't make it to. But I do hope that those that got some review found it helpful. We also had to talk about a bunch of other things. But yeah, if you enjoyed this particular stream, it helps me a lot if you leave a like on it here on YouTube. That tells the algorithm that this was an enjoyable stream. I'd like other people to enjoy it as well. So thank you so much for the support. And if you'd like to be part of the Discord community, community server, there is a link there. And there you will find the weekly schedule. You can see what else is coming up on the coming days. And you can also find the announcement room with links to videos and streams when they come out. And if you grab the reminder roll in the role assignments room, you'll get a notification when I post a video or a stream, as well as about 15 minutes before stream starts, so you don't miss a second. And if you'd like to support the channel even more directly, you can become a member of the channel, you can gift memberships, you can use the super chat system, or if you don't like any of that, there's a Ko-Fi link in the description. It all supports me and the channel directly so that I can do stuff like this for all of you. So thank you so much for the support. And that is a good idea, Shelly. Ironically, that is what this was at some point. And I think I've done that before. I'll see what I'll figure out, Shelly. With that said, good night, good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you are in the world, and I hope to see you all very soon. Bye-bye!